This is an Audio Wool original.
This episode of Frightday is brought to you by Gates of Hell Chipotle Hot Sauce by Frightday. Bold chipotle flavor blended with habanero peppers for just the right burn. Kissed with garlic and passion fruit. Zero human blood, like none at all. Visit shop.frightday.com before the first batch disappears.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/frightday.
I did get a shirt for you, Byron, but I'm not telling you what it is.
I wouldn't tell me.
I'm so freaking excited about it.
I bought this bumper sticker that says "Keep honking and watching a movie" on my phone.
The terrifying thing about that bumper sticker, Byron, is it might actually be accurate more than it's not.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
For you.
Pretty cool.
Somebody needs to help Byron get a self-driving car at least, because he pretends like his is a self-driving car, and at least if he had one...
I got pulled over yesterday.
No, you didn't.
Talked myself out of it. I haven't paid my registration since April.
And it's...
Fourth time I've been pulled over for registration.
Why haven't you paid your registration?
I asked the guy, I said, listen, am I supposed to get something in the mail that tells me when to do this? And he's like, no. And I'm like, I just have to be an adult. And he's like, yes, you do.
You do. You do. And then your mom from the back seat said, please let my son off. I'm just kidding.
I'm just an incredibly charming guy.
You are good.
I think if you're really like upfront with them and be like...
Well, different things work with different officers, right?
I sucked his dick too.
Yeah, I was going to say sometimes.
It is Frightday. I'm your host, Byron. Mm-hmm. Food, family, foul, your good shirt and bad uncle pretending to care about football while quietly asking yourself if what that uncle said was racist. There's the brutal exploitive origins, but also warm dinner rolls, which are nice.
We had really good rolls yesterday.
When the stock boils down, enjoyment of Thanksgiving could pretty much go either way. But 100 years ago, to the day, police in a small port community in western Michigan would discover something chilling at the base of a staircase inside the home of a seemingly mild-mannered family of 5 turned 4. They were as American as apple pie, or pumpkin pie this time of year, but...
I hate pumpkin pie.
Tragedy doesn't take days off, Kelly.
No.
Not even for holidays.
No.
We're back in Michigan, folks. It's been a bit, maybe December 2019, when I did that 3-episode series on John Norman Collins.
I do remember that.
Co-ed killer, Ypsilanti Ripper. Said it right, I think.
It was good.
Thank you.
You pulled it off. Good job.
Episodes, was it 231, 233, and 234? Because I think we threw a New Year's celebration in the middle of that.
I think we did too.
But John's not alone in his dark urges. The Mitten State has been home to a handful. I just caught on that I said handful. That's great.
Well done, Byron.
Wrote this very late last night. A handful of awful folks. There's the Sunday morning slasher, Carl Eugene Watts, who slashed people to death on Sunday mornings. The Phantom Sniper of Royal Oak, Gary Addison Taylor, he stalked the Detroit suburbs, sniping 16 women and girls over a 3-month period.
Wow.
I even found the subject of next year's Byron Ruins Thanksgiving, a more recent unresolved story about 3 young brothers. Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner Skeleton.
Really?
Yep.
3 young brothers missing, their father in the hospital, and the FBI now getting involved.
Were taken by their father to celebrate Thanksgiving weekend, only to have him return home childless.
Wow. Okay, so I love that this one doesn't involve the murder of a child,
Still
so you
brought it
actually had to throw other stories in.
I just want you to think about it till next year.
Thanks, B.
Tonight, though, we're visiting a small town on the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, Grand Haven, Coast Guard City, USA.
Coast Guard, Michigan. Yeah. And I guess the Great Lakes are big.
In Ottawa County, this suburb of Grand Rapids, famous for its soft sand beaches, picturesque. I can never say picturesque. I literally practiced saying that before you got here. Picturesque.
You just did it.
Famous for its soft sand beaches, picturesque lighthouse, and musical fountain, which plays nightly from Memorial Day through Labor Day. Take a peek at this thing.
the wonders of water, and the magic of music, coming together to create something beautiful. This is the Grand Haven Musical Fountain.
Okay, that's kind of fun.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it. Seems kind of interesting.
It was also once home, as well as a key trade route for the Potawatomi and Ottawa Indians. The region eventually taken by French colonial settlers. They did a bunch of fur trapping and trade stuff here. There's an outpost called the Gabagowachi, which means wide mouth.
Ooh, okay.
That outpost was established by a legendary trapper named Madeleine Leframbois and her husband.
Okay, framboise is raspberry. Madeline the raspberry.
I think it's strawberry.
I love that
legendary,
name.
apparently.
I want that name.
I really thought about digging in deep, but we've got a lot of story ahead of us. After the War of 1812, Americans moved in. They built a Christian church, and residents officially established Grand Haven in 1835. We got fur, cattle, leather, logging, and trade. The town was doing pretty all right.
Okay.
Not bad.
Okay.
In 1900, the Story and Clark Piano Company started production there. I bet I'm playing some fun piano music right now.
Can you play ragtime?
I would imagine.
I like ragtime.
Is that a style or a song? Sure. And they had a great run, operating until 1984. And 8 years later, and 6 years before, the old piano factory smokestack collapsed due to a historic derecho, which is like well, I'll just show you a picture.
Is that like a Chinook?
You see these things?
Oh, that's very frightening looking.
Yeah.
It looks like it's from Nope.
Well, that type of weather system actually
What
knocked...
causes it? Do you want to go meteorology
I'm sure
on
it's
us?
that's a high pressure thing.
A high pressure thing.
I'm sure it is.
Okay.
It actually knocked down the smokestack of the old piano factory.
Wow.
8 years later and 6 years before that happened, indie pop artist Garrett Clark Borns, better known as Borns, was born here.
I don't know. Am I supposed to know
No.
who Borns is?
No, I'm just saying.
Is he one of these people that you follow?
No, it's just an indie pop musician. I'm trying to bring some folks.
Oh, got it. Okay, great. Yep. Yeah, Borns.
But for the most part, much like any city I could talk about, this was the birthplace of a number of professional athletes. For example, Howard Bailey,
Always the sports.
Neil Ball, who come on now. This guy executed the first unassisted triple play in 1909, Kelly.
I guess 1909 was, yeah, good for you.
Pretty impressive. Kelly, you love a gangster, though.
I do. I mean, I don't actually love them, but yes, I love stories about them.
George Babyface Nelson and Homer Van Meter.
Okay, I know Babyface Nelson.
Yeah, well,
that one I got.
Later became notorious 1930s criminals. They committed their first bank robbery at the Grand Haven Bank.
No
Pretty
kidding.
cool. But we're not here to learn about the rich history of the American North Midwest.
Why aren't we?
Well, because there's other folks like Joe Pera. You gotta leave it to the professionals. They can talk about it.
Okay.
November 30th, 1922, Thanksgiving night. It's not uncommon to take a mid to late day nap after a large meal.
Tryptophan, man.
That's a lie, actually.
I know. Just
It's a myth.
lean into it.
I
It's
will
fine.
not. There's tryptophan in many different kinds of protein. Kelly released. I think it's probably just the excessive eating.
Yeah, you just stuffed.
Could be the drinks though too.
Even when I think I actually got more tired when I was a kid on Thanksgiving
drinking
and didn't
cider?
drink.
Well, either way, it's not uncommon, Kelly, to take a nap. But winks are typically caught on the couch or in a recliner. Certainly not in the barn of a neighbor.
Oh.
That evening, John Bell discovered a passed-out man making himself comfortable as he could, on the floor of his outbuilding at 211 Fulton Street. As he roused the man, he realized it was his friend from just down the road, an inebriated and noticeably distressed tavern owner named Peter Koopman. Confused and unable to clearly identify what the situation was with him, John brought the man into his home to warm up and get sober.
That was nice of him.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm trying to decide if this would be awkward or normal for the era to have just like a completely like fucked up guy.
Yeah.
The community was different though back then.
It was very different. Also, he was white.
Peter eventually made a request that John, quote, walk over to his house to check on things, to check on his family.
Yeah.
Peter Koopman and Cornelia Johanna van Dongen. She went by Kate. They were both born and raised in Grand Haven in the 1870s. Peter in 1873 and Kate in 1877. no idea what their lives are like growing up, which, Kelly, drives me fucking crazy.
Because you can't find anything?
Can't.
I'm so sorry.
I need fucking microfiche. What's going on? I dug through
we could
newspapers.
fly over there and go. I'm sure in the library we could find some stuff.
I almost called the gift shop. There's like a pamphlet in Grand Haven that supposedly tells more about this story. I almost called them.
I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't.
It was the day before.
little disappointed that you didn't.
I'm sorry. I'll
okay.
do better next time.
Okay.
The two met, maybe popped in a Johannes Brahms CD and made out to Tragic Overture in one of those turn-crank cars.
That sounds real romantic.
Sounds accurate. Fell in love, I'd imagine. Who knows? But they did get married. October 23rd of 1896. I, again, have no concrete idea how life was for the Koopman family. They had 3 children, Clyde.
So she was 19.
Helen.
She was a bebe.
And Peter Jr. What was he, 22? Basically dead in the 1800s.
Okay, it wasn't that bad.
They bought a modest 2-story home at 310 Fulton and opened a business nearby, the Eagle Saloon at 123rd Street. Articles in several Grand Haven area newspapers described Peter as a respectable character, saying he was known to, quote, have always conducted an orderly place, had always been liberal and charitable, and a man who inspired friendship. Kate was, quote, well-loved and had many friends in the community. By most accounts, nothing out of the ordinary, productive participants in small-town society. Until, that is, the rules of society changed. The temperance movement. Prohibition, baby! May 1st, 1917, the state of Michigan went dry. Over 2 years before the 19th Amendment went into effect, they were the first in out of any other state. 6 months before it was even proposed to Congress. Michigan's church, business, and community leaders believed that a ban on the sale of alcoholic drinks would reduce crime and improve both family life and employee productivity. All businesses except ones like Peter Koopman's.
Okay.
Because he's selling alcohol. The Michigan Anti-Saloon League.
Ugh. Okay, but it was law. Why did they need a league, too?
Well, they're also known as the American Council on Addiction and Alcohol Problems. They played a substantial role in creating public disapproval against the saloons, breweries, and, well, any consumption of alcohol.
Ew.
This is just a bit of their propaganda here. I thought I'd print this out for you. It's a fun drawing, if you could describe that.
Okay, so we have a very rotund...
Well, why is that?
Honolulu Brewery. I do believe Honolulu's spelled wrong here.
Well, could be.
Anti-Saloon League. That man is clearly... There's a woman beside him wearing a fancy hat.
Sure. And she's holding something.
She's pumping something into his gut. And there's a speech bubble that says, pump it in.
It's libations, Kelly.
Yep. And then he has a mug of beer spilled.
Yeah.
But it says water cure for the brewery. So maybe she's pumping water into him, do you think?
Water cure for... Oh, no, I see what you're saying. Okay. What is the water cure for the brewery?
Man, very difficult to understand what they're trying to do with that.
Yeah.
I mean, water is the cure for... If you're full of water, it's harder to drink alcohol.
It's confusing. I don't know what it is. Fun drawing. But Kelly, you know history, not as well as your husband, Sam. But you do know that, of course, the result of Prohibition was everyone became sober, better adjusted, and God-fearing folks. End of story.
Of course,
but
of course.
Close, and that's why we're doing the same thing as we were back then. We quit drinking. 19th Amendment didn't get canceled, was it?
I am drinking a beer.
You are drinking a beer.
It is called Muley Buck.
All right. Of course, that...
It's very hoppy.
Whole thing didn't last. Bootleggers, rum runners, smugglers. This also proved to be a cracked door that gangsters like Al Capone took advantage of. It led to the rise of the American Mafia.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's very nice. I watched a lot of movies about those bootleggers and gangsters in the 1920s. Very romanticized. I realized that it was probably real bad. They were probably real awful. Wait, in addition what to part? Like murdering and but I bet that they were real rapey, and I bet that they also were real
Don't
racist.
Bring that part up.
But man,
everyone kind of was.
There are some real fun stories about them. I wish that
Well, Kelly, when all was said and drunk, this was basically a complete failure. Everyone was getting shit-faced in secret. Legal brewers and bartenders lost their jobs, or at least kind of. And I believe that Peter lost his saloon, but I might...
Just difficult to...
I might be premature in that speculation.
Okay.
All of this is sadly ironic, considering Grand Rapids, just 33 miles inland from Grand Haven, is now nicknamed Beer City, USA.
$40 million, almost 100,000 people coming specifically for the beer. Kate, that's just incredible.
Boasting over 80 breweries. That's more craft beer per square mile than just about anywhere else on Earth, according to PureMichigan.com. I have no idea for sure.
Wow.
But beer wasn't Peter's problem. Not personally, I guess. He was a moonshine guy. And from how the town responded to his Thanksgiving behavior, it seemed he had a persistent or possibly escalating problem with alcohol that everyone was aware of, but kept to themselves.
Maybe because they were enjoying his moonshine, so they didn't want to,
I don't want to shut this down.
Rock the boat too much.
Yeah, I mean, after years of prohibition, he was still sloppy as hell. But possibly providing the whole town with a good time.
Okay.
Back to late Thanksgiving, early Black Friday morning, 1922. John Bell didn't want to leave Peter alone in his house in that state. Don't blame him. Okay. So he asked his friend Jim Stone to pop over to the Koopman place to check in on things. When he returned, he said, I spoke to Mrs. Koopman. Everything's fine.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Which probably sobered Peter up faster than any combination of coffee or a cold shower could, because to the best of his recollection, things weren't fine when he left. Either he was more moonshine than he thought, or Jim had been mistaken. Jim wasn't mistaken. He just saw a light on in the house and assumed things were fine and left. Jim wasn't the only bystander to assume the light and quiet were a sign that everything was all right. Police arrived at the Koopman house around 4:45 Thanksgiving Day after 8-year-old Peter Jr. and one of his cousins were sent by Kate to get an officer. Peter wouldn't let her call the police herself. Kate and her husband were fighting. Again.
So this was a...
Yeah. Officers told Peter Jr. to stay at his cousin's that night to let the adults cool down. At 211 Fulton, they found it quiet as well. No one answered the door, nothing unusual, nothing at all, and left.
Okay. Peter
was out and about, slurring and stumbling. He showed up at Brunsema and Griswold Stables, where he asked a 15-year-old boy named Oscar. I also saw him name something else in another article, but I think it was William.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
To try and call his wife, if she picked up, to say, is Peter there? He also asked the boy to find one of his friends to keep an eye on his house as a lookout to see if anyone came or went.
Okay.
Very strange.
Very strange.
He left for a bit, then returned, asking for a ride to the Floto farm. So he said that he, quote, lost something at the farm, and if he didn't find it, that he was going to lay on a railroad track.
Okay.
Don't know what he's exactly talking about. When the two arrived, they were quickly turned around by Mrs. Floto, who recognized that Peter was irate and wasted. He threatened her with a gun, which she easily took from him. She slipped it out of his overcoat pocket when he turned around. It's pretty cool.
Very gangstery.
Well, yeah. They left, and arriving back in town, he showed up at the home of a pal named Jack Buss. Borderline incoherently, Jack later testified that Peter was mumbling something along the lines of, I might have shot over their heads. When I was walking through the whole timeline of this weirdness that the townspeople were saying, I had like kind of a weird conspiracy theory pop up in my head.
Okay, well, I know where you're
like, why did Mrs. Floto have the gun? Like, did she really take it from him?
Yeah.
Or did he hide it there and she knew what he did?
Wow.
That seems kind of odd. And like the whole, like, I left something there and if I don't get it, I'll lay on a railroad track quote seemed very strange as well.
I completely agree. Very weird. Man, I wish we could go get that microfiche.
I just need more.
I know.
There's nothing. I'm working with
scraps.
A lot.
It's a lot.
But okay. Too scared to go home, it was getting dark, and he found himself eventually in the barn of John Ball, like the animal who he would soon be outed as. The body of Kate wasn't discovered until later the next day when her son Clyde...
The oldest son, I think, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
And Peter's attorney, Mr. Charles Misner, they forced open a window and climbed in. They were actually looking for Peter. He was due in court that day for liquor violations charges, which is kind of a broad thing. It apparently is anytime an individual or an establishment breaches an alcohol-related regulation that involves the consumption, possession, transportation, serving, or sale of alcoholic beverages.
Yeah.
In one of these articles from 1922, I saw that he was still selling alcohol.
Yeah.
That seems to be the problem.
Yeah.
Either way, hot water that guy was in. The two found the house the same as Jim did and the same as the officers did. Dead quiet.
Interesting choice of words, Byron.
Made sense, because at the bottom of the stairs, sitting hunched, was the body of Kate Koopman. Dead from a gunshot wound. The bullet entered her back, passed through her heart, and lodged itself in her breast. Burn marks around the bullet hole indicated that she had been shot at close range. When a neighbor spoke to police, she told them that she had heard 2 shots fired late on Thanksgiving afternoon, sometime around 4. John Bell let authorities know Peter was at his house, and they showed up and scooped him up. Terribly sad.
Super, super sad. Like, found by her oldest son, and like...
You said that there's some rumor that he might have been a police officer?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what that is, but...
Yeah, it could be. Could be.
We need more fish. Kate's remains were taken to the Boer undertaking rooms for a coroner's examination. When police showed Peter the body of his wife, he started crying and stroking her face.
Ugh.
He remained adamant that he didn't murder his wife, and at the advice of his lawyer, who found the body, he refused to answer any questions, which, all this aside, always a great move. Always ask for a lawyer.
Yeah, get a lawyer.
Don't talk to cops.
Get a lawyer. I mean, don't kill your wife.
Please, that's step 1.
Right, step 1.
Don't kill your wife.
Should you make bad choices, get a lawyer.
Or if you are being accused of making choices you didn't make that were bad.
Most importantly in those situations.
Don't talk to cops.
Yep, I feel like if I ever ended up in a situation like that, I'd be so screwed. Because I would be like, wait, no, but this happened and this happened. Wait, but no.
Sure.
I would say all the things and then I'd be done for.
You'd fuck up.
Yep.
Yeah, investigation gave us some insight into the Koopmans' financial situation. After having built up a comfortable fortune selling booze, Peter developed a bit of an overspending habit. Much of his savings had disappeared when that was no longer possible, or at least openly possible to do.
Okay.
Selling the booze.
Okay.
Alcohol combined with financial stress was determined to be the most likely combination of things that caused him to snap.
And so tell me more about this financial stress.
He just, like I said, was spending too much money.
Because he had made pretty good money.
Yeah, but then
he burned through it all.
Because
alcohols.
No, because they wouldn't let him sell alcohol.
Didn't he have a gambling problem?
I wouldn't put it past him.
Also, a lot of what I read about that was probably from rather propaganda-heavy news stories at the time that were really trying to drill home the angle of see what happens when you drink.
Yeah, I was going to say the judge said something about that, but we'll get there.
Okay.
This is Byron's anti-prohibition temperance movement rant a little bit. It obviously caused more problems than it solved. It was a problem, but it doesn't just go away.
No.
And when you make things illegal, sometimes things get escalated.
Well, we could, instead of talking about the temperance movement, we could move into the war on drugs. Do you want to do that?
Well, let's take a quick little...
Okay.
Wait, actually, we should probably finish this story.
Okay, fine. All right.
He claimed to not remember anything that happened that night. Not sure if he did. I'm also not sure it matters. He quickly shifted from suspect to charged for first-degree murder of his wife of 26 years. A few days later, on December 4th, Kate was laid to rest in a family plot at Lake Forest Cemetery, and Peter remained locked up, preparing for trial, which would begin a few months later in 1923. Jury selection was tough, though, with such a small community. Nearly all of the prospective members were excused because they'd seen articles like this with headlines like these, Kelly.
Oh, let's hear it.
A Holland man charged with slaying wife. And this is probably where I got ex-saloon keeper jailed after discovery of mate's body. No mention of her name there.
Oh, well, she doesn't need a name.
Okay, let's go to this next one. That was from the Boston Harbor News Palladium from December 2nd, 1922. This is from the Lansing State Journal. Ottawa man held for wife's death. Mrs. Peter Koopman, Grand Haven, dies from bullet wounds. Cool. Mrs. Peter Koopman.
God, I'm so sorry that I don't live at a time where I was only known for who I was married to.
Battle Creek Inquirer from the same date, December 2nd. Husband held when wife is found dead. Peter Koopman suspected of having killed the woman Thursday, in trouble before, saying that he had past problems with alcohol. So, great. Wow. Really cool. Not much mention of poor Kate in any of that.
Very interesting.
It's odd how the coverage has kind of shifted from only talking about the offender with no focus of a victim to the opposite.
Yeah.
It's good. It's
good. Some things do get better.
But yeah, they fully dismissed one pool. They had to bring in an additional 30 folks. But that wouldn't be super necessary. On the opening day of trial, all 3 of Peter's children were seated in the front row, waiting to learn what happened to their mother and what would happen to their father. And I think sadly, some of the children did see what happened.
What had happened, yeah.
The trial ended the very next day when Misner requested the charge of first-degree murder to be dropped as Peter offered to plead guilty of manslaughter.
So he actually did one nice thing.
He claimed that he did that because he didn't want his children to be publicly dragged into this. He didn't want them to testify in open court.
Yeah.
I also think, he actively denied that he did any of this.
Right.
So this is his, happy medium.
Right. So he never actually said he killed her. He just said, I'm going to plead guilty so that I don't have to put my children through that trauma.
To manslaughter, which is a lot different than first-degree murder.
Very. In fact, if I remember, the sentence was rather...
shocking?
Yeah.
Yeah, the community was not thrilled. In fact, when they heard the verdict, a lot of them kind of just sat there waiting, almost expecting the judge to reconsider because they were so disappointed. I held up 3 news articles from the region, but this was a very sensational story in the community. Yeah. I don't have any copies of the actual Grand Haven newspaper. But
yeah, well.
The minimum sentence for manslaughter at the time was 7.5 years, with a maximum of 15 and a fine of $1,000. Peter was officially sentenced April 20th, 1923, given the minimum 7.5 years and a $500 fine, which is something a little less than $9,000 today.
And didn't the judge say, I'm going to recommend the minimum sentence as long as you stay away from the booze?
That's the thing. He's like, hey, I feel so much better, because he was locked up for 100 days before trial. He's like, I'm sober. He was working out every day. He had all these pictures up on his walls. He was smoking cigarettes. He even openly admitted that he was being treated very well by guards, given special treatment.
Interesting.
It's... I think the judge used it as an opportunity to say, if you would have just stayed away from the booze, this would have never happened.
Yeah,
used him as
clearly
an example of, this is what happens when you're sober.
Yeah.
The biggest takeaway about this whole story that I had, and I was thinking on a run too long ago, this isn't the grimmest story that I've covered.
Thank God.
For the podcast.
Although you really did try to up it, but yeah.
I looked very hard, but this is unfortunately now one of the most common styles of murder, domestic violence against women with alcohol and addiction as a factor. What are the statistics? I'm just staring at something up here. 18,000 women murdered by men in 1 year.
Oh my God.
In 2019. And domestic violence, period, is just such a massive problem. And back then, I'm sure it happened much more often behind closed doors. They say that the Peter and Kate Koopman family was well adjusted and part of the community, but who knows what happened? Neighbors heard gunshots and didn't do anything. It sounded like this was not the first time that the family had fought. Just sad,
Very, Very sad.
Peter did his time in Jackson, which was the first prison in the state. And I also learned that...
Really?
Yeah, it's just a little bit inland. It's like central Michigan. Some of the original cells were 7 feet long by 3 1/3 feet wide and 6.5 inches tall. Love it. That's crazy. That's like a large sarcophagus.
That's insanity.
Like, what's 3?
How is that?
Do my shoulders fit 3 1/3?
That's terrifying to think about.
Yeah. Let's hope he got one of those. For folks at home who feel like 7.5 years locked up isn't justice, I don't have much to say to make it better. The town kind of ignored him when he got out, but they also ignored his crime. To make money, Peter sold flowers to tourists and took odd jobs up until his death from a heart attack on July 19th, 1949. He was 76 years old. The local paper, again the Grand Haven Tribune, wrote a small article with the bolded headline, "Peter Koopman dies suddenly." They mentioned nothing about the trial or the murder of his wife.
Yeah, water under the bridge.
Those flowers he sold must have been beautiful. Wow. He's buried in the same cemetery as his wife, but nowhere near her, thank goodness. Good. Yeah. But according to some, Kate didn't stop living once she was killed. Well, not in some ways. That although what happened that night is largely a mystery, folks visiting 310 Fulton could possibly learn more directly from the victim's apparitional lips.
Wah, wah, wee, wah.
Kelly, we got a ghost story?
We got a ghost story. Byron, I know that nobody likes my long history lessons, but I'm going to just do a really, really quick history.
Talking about like a fur trading town.
I guess that's true. But people like it coming from you more. I don't know why. This house, the 310 Fulton House in New Haven, Grand Haven, not New Haven. New Haven's in Connecticut. Yeah, Grand Haven is in
different
Michigan. Different Haven. By the way, never mind. The gentleman who built the house in the late 1800s, Eugene Felt.
Dorr.
D-O-R-R.
Oh, okay.
And it's fun because his middle initial was E, so you could actually just call him Dory Felt, which sounds very female. He actually has an odd place in history. He invented the comptometer, which was the very first printing adding machine.
Sure. Okay, you're doing a little typing there.
Yep.
Oh, this is kind of fun. Lots of buttons on this thing.
Yep.
You see this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
He remained a major player in the calculator industry.
So you can go up into the thousands here.
Oh, yeah. It was a very big deal. Very big deal. So he invented that and he built this house. He had a very strange fear of fire, though. This is why the house was not constructed of wood. It's got like steel beams and stone, and the roof and walls were concrete. I mean, very weird, right? Which is funny because ours is too, but I don't know about the steel.
And this is at 310, right?
310 Fulton.
It's a weird house.
It is a weird house.
I'm looking at pictures of it right now. It is sold, not for sale.
Oh, I'm going to tell you all about the history.
Can't wait.
1992, it was converted to a thrift store.
This is?
It was. It no longer is a thrift store. Hang with me. In 1992, it was converted to a thrift store, and this is where a lot of the paranormal investigation took place. The woman who owned it, Linda Forbes, who is now retired, happily retired, if you want to look on LinkedIn. Second impression, she started seeing things, and her employees were seeing things, and so she actually brought in someone to investigate. All right, so here's a little bit of what she and her employees experienced. Kate seems to like the formals, like the formal dresses, on the balcony. She's often dinked around with those. Okay. So apparently Kate was doing a lot of playing with like dresses.
Okay.
Yep. Also, the owner, Linda, would say she would find the front door open when she knew she had closed and locked it. Radio would turn on and off when no one was around. Clothing would be scattered around, and especially the upstairs bathroom.
So that scattered clothing, I think, could be the result of leaving the door open.
True.
Uh-huh.
It was more, stories were like, you know, when somebody was closing down the shop for the day, they would clean up one room and then turn around and come back, and suddenly it would be like scattered. Very poltergeisty.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wasn't there a kitchen and poltergeist scene?
There was all the chairs on the. Yep. Okay. Also, the upstairs bathroom would just randomly fill with water, even when it wasn't being used. But, Linda said, for the most part, she's a pretty quiet ghost. Here's where it gets really fun. One of the girls who worked there, who happened to be in high school at the time, said she saw a full-bodied apparition come down the stairs, then disappear. Which would make sense, because she couldn't probably move past the bottom step, because that's where she died. So she would, like, come down the stairs and then disappear.
I love it when you try to make it like a logical thing.
It doesn't make any sense. I will acknowledge that.
It's a spiritual barrier.
It is a spiritual barrier.
A foot past where she died.
Yeah, I know.
I've never heard the ghosts do that before. They're always fucking falling through the ceiling and shit.
I know. Apparently there's a hole in the drywall near the base of the stairs, which is where one of Koopman's bullets ended up. And the bullet is still supposedly in there.
Twice, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and that was another thing I didn't really get into. When he said he shot over their heads, doesn't really make any sense, because it was found and determined that she was shot in the back at close range. But
yeah, whatever.
Maybe he tripped down the stairs.
Could be. Or he was drunk, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Another employee, Yvonne Lynch, said that she had seen Kate in 2 separate places multiple times, but these are the 2 places she'd seen her. I saw her standing and looking out one of the upstairs windows. I've also seen her in one of the upstairs rooms where we sell our formal wear. So again, Kate apparently really liked the fancies.
Well, and that would make sense, because they were pretty well off for a brief period of time.
It makes perfect sense. All right, so there's a woman by the name of Amber Rose Hammond, who Linda actually invited to come do an investigation, because she'd seen so many things and her employees had. You guys, it's been a while since an EV, please.
You're gonna give us one?
Yeah.
Wow.
They got a pretty good EVP. Now, Byron, do you want me to say what I think they're saying before or after playing?
Of course.
All right, I'm going to play the clip first.
Twice.
Okay.
That was obnoxious.
It wasn't that obnoxious. I'll play it again.
It doesn't need to do that.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. So here's what she's saying.
What could that be, other than like a sound?
I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. Help me.
She's writing a song.
I mean, it does sound like the start to a pretty catchy tune.
Wow.
It is very sad. I would imagine.
I don't like hearing a ghost that's saying they're not happy 3 times. That's
I know.
No Pharrell Williams track.
No, I do love Pharrell.
Wow, that is.
But he's an alien. He has nothing to do with ghosts.
But he does know a thing or two about being happy.
He does. He knows so much about being happy. There are enough accounts that I do think there's something to Kate haunting the place. Here's what's interesting, Byron. Unfortunately, the secondhand store closed down 5 or 6 years ago. The last review I could find for it was from the summer of 2017.
Okay.
But it was sold just a little over a year ago in September of 2021. And it was bought by an LLC that obviously formed just for the purchase of this property called 310 Fulton LLC.
Oh, no, they're making a movie, aren't they?
Well, I don't know. Here's what's strange, Byron. When I dug into this, the registered sole member of this LLC is a gentleman by the name of Michael Van Tubergen. Okay? He's a lawyer from Grand Haven, of course. But do you know where the address of his law firm is?
Is it 114 North 3rd Street?
Yeah, it's right next door to the saloon.
This guy's got a personal curiosity here.
Very strange. Now, it doesn't show that anything's been done with it yet. It hasn't changed hands. It's sold for $180,000.
That's
Byron,
a steal.
As we so frequently do when we do these stories, we really missed an opportunity. Had we done this story 2 years ago, we could have bought it last year.
Probably.
I mean, that's a bargain.
It's cheaper than the house I bought here, and I got this thing for a steal.
I know. I know. And then you could have gone and stayed there while you looked into the microfiche, right? Like at the local library.
You think I'm going to fucking invest my entire life into this
in Grand Haven. I
Come
don't know.
on.
It seems
It's
like a
fine
pretty
story,
nice place.
But I'm just saying that was,
Seems like a good place. There is one known picture of Kate Koopman, and
that's
I
gonna
will
be
tell you,
show notes.
it is one of the spookiest pictures I've ever seen.
Really?
It looks like it's not even a picture. It's not supposed to be a picture of her as a ghost, but it looks like a picture of her as a ghost. And it is very frightening. Byron, I know you hate it when I recommend other podcasts to people, but I am going to say there's a fun episode, not to be mean, but this podcast is okay. The guests on this...
I'm fine with you saying that people's podcasts are okay. But
Right. These guests on this particular episode of the podcast are very good, and they've investigated this specific location 6 or 7 times, and they've got some very interesting stories. Also, I played this episode for Sam, and while he was very much looking forward to making fun of the notion of a ghost hunting podcast, he quickly had to admit that these people were very responsible in the way that they did their investigation. Very little sensationalism. They work very hard to try and explain away any sounds that they catch, and in fact tell multiple stories of how they did determine. Actually, we found out by cross-checking our cameras that there was a guy that had been walking upstairs. It was part of our crew, and that's what made this
squeaked the
noise.
board, yeah.
Right, like, so they're not idiots. We're not talking complicated pants here.
Enamel
is,
pin coming soon.
yeah, well, oh God, I do need that one. This podcast is Haunted. It's the name of the podcast, but it's episode 5, Peter Koopman Ruins Thanksgiving. And if you want to listen to them, fast forward to 6 or 7 minutes in, and it will talk about some of the experiences they had ghost hunting at 310 Fulton and investigating the residual or poltergeist or active full-bodied apparition haunting of poor Kate Koopman. Yeah, I mean, I went in today, Byron, looking forward to recording a Thanksgiving episode about not the death of children. And even though you really tried to work that in there for me,
Next year.
I'm going to hang tight to the idea that we had a very sad, tragic story, not altogether different from many of those that we hear these days. And if anybody has been on the grounds of 310 Fulton or on the grounds of 123rd Street, for that matter, in the saloon, I'd love to hear any stories. I have friends moving to northern Michigan in early New Year, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit excited to maybe do a bit of a road trip and check out this place if I get the opportunity on the way to go visit them at some point soon.
And another important thing, if you're struggling with addiction, there's help out there.
Oh, there is. There's so much help.
And it's not all 12-step programs, even
No.
though that seems to be helpful to a lot of folks.
If that's your deal, that's great. If it's not your deal, there's a ton of other options. And please, I know that this time of year is unbelievably stressful and awful for so many people, as Peter Koopman is a testament to. Please get some help. There are people always who care, and things are always less terrible and much better than they feel.
Yeah.
In the heat of a terrible moment. So.
And also, if you're a victim of domestic violence, there's no excuse. No one deserves that, and you have to get out.
Yeah, because heaven forbid you become known as a Mrs. Peter Koopman.
You can call 1-800-799-SAFE or visit the National Domestic Violence Hotline. In other ways, you can go online, thehotline.org.
Yeah. Hey, Byron, good job. Good on you. Very proud of you. Also, thanks for not being a domestic abuser.
I try my best.
Yeah, you're pretty good at that.
Thanks.
Honestly, it's one of your best skills, I would say.
Wow. That's not the
Yeah, you can
not
put
the
that on record.
podcasting. It's that I'm
Not
don't
abusive.
physically or verbally assault partners.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. I think you're really good at it.
Thank you.
Everybody, I hope you had a non-traumatic Thanksgiving. I
Yeah.
hope you got some really good food.
Hope you didn't get it on your good shirt.
I always order a Poshmark outfit
Nice.
for Thanksgiving so
Great.
that I just don't, like yesterday I had this really fancy silk jumper on.
Okay.
Didn't give a shit that there was gravy all over it.
Fun.
Pie, because I'm like, yeah, got it from Poshmark.
How embarrassing for you.
Oh, no, you know I don't get embarrassed. That's not
true.
a thing.
Yeah.
I had to explain that to my sister's boyfriend yesterday. He's like, oh, ooh, did I just walk in on a sister conversation? I'm like, aha, you need to know this about me, sir. There is no conversation you could possibly walk into that would embarrass me.
I got to cut this conversation off before.
Yep.
Kelly, where can people find you until next week?
Oh, you can find me by email at kelly@frightday.com.
You're off of it.
I'm not off of Twitter. I'm just not actively looking at it because Elon Musk is a fucking...
I think they're finally going to unban your account. He's given clemency to everyone.
To everyone, even me?
Yeah, even you.
And me.
After all that stuff.
Somebody just got... Oh, Kepi Ghoulie just got banned from Twitter. He got suspended. I don't know what he was doing, but it cracked me up because he's like the nicest human alive.
A great guy from the Groovy Ghoulies.
Yeah, for Kepi to get banned is the funniest thing ever.
Well, I'm back on. At Byron McKoy on Twitter and Instagram, Gab, and Be Real.
We had a discussion about Truth Social yesterday.
Truth Social as well. Parlor, all of them. Catch me on 8kun.
Oh,
I don't know, folks. But yeah, until next week, where we continue our journey to Lemuria. I'm Byron.
I'm Kelly.
Stay safe, warm, and full.
Yes.
And scared. You've been listening to an Audio Wool original, produced by Byron McKoy, theme music provided by Cemeteries. For more programs like this, visit audiowool.co.